Next on the Capitol Cable, special 100th episode, Future of the Alliance, Foreign Minister Pak Chin, Dr. John Hamre, Dr. Victor Cha, Red Phone is back, in-person episode, all that and more next on the Capitol Cable. All right, good morning to those of you in DC, good evening to those of you in Korea, good day to those of you around the world. Welcome to the 100th special in-person installment of the CSIS Capitol Cable. I'm Mark Lippert, your host and moderator. This week on the Capitol Cable, Foreign Minister Pak Chin, Dr. John Hamre, 100th episode, all to talk about the future of the alliance. Let me welcome briefly and formally introduce our outstanding high-statured panelists here today, special guests rather. Let me come first to Dr. Hamre, who is joining us here in person. He's the CEO of CSIS, the Langone Chair in American Leadership. We just call him the Supreme Allied Commander of CSIS around here. And before joining CSIS, Dr. Hamre, of course, was the 26th United States Deputy Secretary of Defense. And prior to that, he was the Comptroller of the Department of Defense of the Pentagon, 93 to 97, Principal Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for preparation, presentation, and execution of the defense budget and management improvement programs. In 2007, of course, Secretary Gates appointed Dr. Hamre to serve as the chair of the Defense Policy Board, and of course, a whole host of accolades, publications, educational accomplishments, and of course, a native from the Dakotas as well. Welcome to your own house here, Dr. Hamre. Thanks for joining us in person.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
All right, excellent, outstanding. All right, hybrid late in Seoul. No stranger to CSIS, well-known, a very, very, I would say, just famous and insightful presence here in a variety of iterations, public and private. We have Dr. Pak Chin, who, of course, was the last term in public service, was a Minister of Foreign Affairs to the Republic of Korea from 22 to 24. Also a 4-term member of the National Assembly of the Republic of Korea, where he really was a prolific legislator, including chairing the Foreign Affairs Trade and National Unification Committee, during which he passed Chorus FTA, Korea EU FTA, North Korea Human Rights Act, the Official Development Assistance Law, and the U.S. UN Peacekeeping Operations Law. I mean, really a great body of work in that stead. He also served as the president of the Asia Future Institute, of which I visited personally and took a great briefing on North Korea. The slides I still have today. And of course, during his 20-year political career, also served as presidential secretary and for press affairs and later political affairs under Kim Young-sam during that administration, 1993 to 1998. And I would be remiss if I also did not tell our audience that I have a source that said that British Prime Minister John Major said he was the best English-speaking Korean he had ever encountered. And I think that is also befitting of the many talents of the foreign minister. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I'm very honored to join this Capitol Cable episode number 100. I think this is a very critical time for our alliance, Korea-U.S. alliance, which has been evolving very successfully from a military alliance to economic alliance, now to technological alliance. And together with the U.S. presidential election going on, depending on the outcome, I think that there are very significant implications for the future of our alliance. So I'm very delighted to be with you, and also Supreme Allied Commander John Hamre, and also my good friend Victor Cha. So I wish you good luck.
All right, outstanding. Thanks, 4 minutes for joining. And last but certainly not least, the CSIS Asia head, for lack of a formal title here today, Victor Cha. Obviously, everybody on the Capital Cable or in and around the Capital Cable know Victor well. In addition to CSIS, he has his long-standing work at Georgetown, NSC, the Defense Policy Board, and a little surly today after the Giants loss. Victor, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, but it's made up by the fact that we are doing our 100th episode.
Very true. All right, outstanding, outstanding. All right, let's dive in and really, the foreign minister teed up the first question very well, and he noted that the alliance has really evolved from a security alliance to, you can argue, the economic piece under his leadership as chairman of a key committee in the National Assembly, the technological piece that our two presidents have talked about and really forged a path forward on. And we're in a new era, and we're on the precipice of a U.S. election here. So, Foreign Minister, walk us through your vision of where you see the alliance heading in the next year, 5 years. Obviously, you've got some big variables out there, but your vision of where we should head as an alliance and where we are headed. And again, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you, Mark. As I have mentioned, the Korea-U.S. alliance is evolving in response to a range of geopolitical, security, and economic challenges. 1 year from now, the focus will remain on strengthening deterrence against North Korea's threats, the joint military exercises and enhanced missile defense cooperation will likely continue, and especially as North Korea advances its nuclear capabilities. And economic and technological collaboration will also continue. The alliance is expected to deepen in areas like supply chain resilience, semiconductors, and critical technologies such as AI, quantum, and bio, and economic security will gain prominence. 5 years from now, I can see that integrated defense and cybersecurity will be the case. The U.S. ROK, Korea-U.S. alliance is likely to emphasize integrated military capabilities, I hope, including cybersecurity and space defense. South Korea might play a larger role in broader regional security frameworks beyond the Korean Peninsula. And then there will be green energy and climate cooperation, as both nations prioritize carbon neutrality goals. Cooperation in renewable energy technologies such as hydrogen and green energy investment will increase. 10 years from now, say in the year 2034, I would predict that there will be expanded strategic partnership. The alliance could evolve into a more comprehensive partnership involving not just defense and economy, but also like technological innovation, climate leadership, and human rights. South Korea may become an even stronger regional leader supported by the United States in balancing Chinese influence. Republic of Korea might have developed more autonomous defense capabilities by 2034, while the U.S. remains a robust strategic partner in maintaining regional peace and stability. The alliance will likely focus on broader Indo-Pacific security beyond just the Korean Peninsula. And lastly, the continued strength of people-to-people exchanges, cultural diplomacy, and educational cooperation will play a vital role in deepening mutual understanding between the two nations. In all stages, I think the alliance is likely to balance traditional security concerns with newer and non-traditional threats and challenges. Back to you, Mark.
All right, outstanding lay down there, Foreign Minister. It's precisely why we can see your experience of the Asia Future Institute shining through on this episode here. Dr. Hamre, question for you, same question. Your take on the Future Alliance. You heard the Foreign Minister outline a really comprehensive, high-functioning, you would say, integrated alliance across a range of sectors. Your thoughts on that bucket of issues, plus particular issues of focus and priority? The floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark. It's an honor to be here. And let me say, I very much hope that the future that Foreign Minister Pak just delineated does happen. I strongly favor that. I think it's exactly the world we would like to have. Let me, so I don't want to be a Cassandra, but I do want to talk about two concerns that I have. A concern that I have for Korea and a concern I have for the United States. And they both have the same quality, and that is, you know, every government has a certain degree of parochialism. You know, politics is local. But I think Korea's at a pivotal moment, the United States is at a pivotal moment. I greatly admire the work that President Yoon and Foreign Minister Pak did to create, you know, to change Korea's thinking about itself to be a global pivotal state. GPS, you remember this? You know, Jen, you were the inventor of the concept, but it was saying it's time for Korea to think of itself as a larger entity in the world, not just a besieged tiny country at the end of a peninsula on Asia. I thought that was right. We were right for that. The question is will that continue? You know, Korean politics is dynamic, and my worry would be, will there be a tug back to parochialism in the next election? So that the concern I have here in the United States is in one sense the same. There's a deep parochialism that's now the centerpiece of American politics. And, you know, have we wasted our time being a global leader? Should we be focusing on the heartland? Should we be just strengthening our borders to heck with whatever is outside of them? You know, this is a raging debate now, and it's dominating our politics. There's a deep parochialism that's growing strong in our politics. And so my concern, I want the world that Park Jin just delineated, I want that to happen more than I can say. But I think we have to be objective about there are tensions internal to both societies that we're going to have to work through as we see this greater parochialism emerging and maybe pulling us back from the kind of cooperation we need.
All right, outstanding. Let me ask you one quick follow-up on that. You presided at the Pentagon in a time when there was the end of the Cold War, the peace dividend. There was a proclivity for pullback, right? Budgets were being cut, no foreign service exam offered, AID being thought of to consolidate with the state, all similar type of time, but in a way different lessons learned in terms of how to manage through that, because I guess you could suggest that despite periods of turbulence and parochialism, the alliance has generally moved in a positive direction. Mm-hmm. What lessons have you learned from that, your experience here in Washington?
Well, the consensus shifted dramatically, and you know, from a political landscape, people thought peace in our time, we no longer had to worry. And unfortunately, we dismantled a lot of things that we now know we needed. I'll use the example in Europe. I mean, when Russia invaded Crimea, there was not a single war planner at NATO headquarters. We had taken all of that out. We no longer thought we had to think about operational planning. Now we've put that back, and great credit to Phil Breedlove and other generals that have been on the forefront to rebuild that. we didn't dismantle it in U.S. Forces Korea. I mean, that's intact, and so that's still there. There was a brief period where we thought, we could pull back dramatically because we didn't face a threat. I think both China's aggressiveness and now Russia entering the scene as an active partner to North Korea has changed the landscape directly. But I don't know that we've created the intellectual framework for this new era here in the United States. I think we have a policy lag that is derivative of the political lag in thinking.
All right, outstanding. Really interesting stuff there. Before I go to Victor, I'm going to come back to the foreign minister. Foreign Minister, two follow-ups to you. One, your take on South Korean domestic politics in the context of what Dr. Hamre just laid out, given your long tenure as a National Assembly member, someone who works in and around this sphere. And two, what about some of these emerging strains within Korean popular opinion? China, extended deterrence, the popularity of the U.S. How does that all nest together for the future of the U.S. ROK alliance?
Yes, I can understand the concern that John has just described, that if the domestic political environment changes, then the initiative taken under this Yoon Suk-yeol government might be influenced. I don't think that may be the case. I hope it's not the case because there is a very strong consensus among the public in Korea that our future lies in the very strong maintenance of a strong Korea-U.S. alliance. And this has to be an enduring strategic partnership. Long-standing and evolving nature of our alliance, I think, will continue and should continue because it's the foundation for peace and security and stability on the Korean Peninsula, and not just on the Korean Peninsula, but as I mentioned, in a broader framework of Indo-Pacific region. And number two, North Korea's threats, which have been growing, will continue to be a problem, regardless of domestic political changes in Korea, if it happens. North Korea has been consistently accumulated its weapons of mass destruction through nuclear development and missile proliferation. So we have to respond to these growing threats from North Korea, and the role of the alliance is crucial. So that is a variable that will not change. So in that sense, there could be political ups and downs or political changes in the future, but I think that the spirit of the alliance and the foundations of the alliance and also the role of the Korea-U.S. alliance will continue, and it will be even strengthened.
All right, outstanding, really interesting back and forth here. Victor, let's bring you in to weigh in on this basket of issues. Your thoughts here. I'd ask you a question, but you generally ignore my questions and just say whatever you want. So let's just get right to the point here.
Well, so the first thing I would say is when I listened to John sort of describe the debate in the United States and in Korea, it's remarkably similar, right? In the sense that this debate about internationalism versus parochialism, razor-thin elections in Korea, razor-thin elections in the United States. There's so many similarities when you think about it. But I too am hopeful that in spite of the concerns that I share with John, I hope Pak Jin is right. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the reason that, I think he may be right is the external environment, right? The external environment can sometimes be so compelling that it forces political leaders to look outwards and not just look inwards. And So if we look at the war in Europe, even if this war ends, it's not like Russia's not going to be a threat anymore. Russia will still be a threat. China's plans to build, thousands of nuclear warheads by the end of the decade, the tightening relationship between China, North Korea, Russia, Iran, all these things will force any leader to look outwards. And in terms of looking outwards, one of the places I think we'll continue and hopefully continue to see that operationalized will be in the trilateral relationship among the U.S., Japan, and Korea. We had, Dr. Hamre and I had Kurt Campbell at CSIS like twice or three times on Friday. And one of the things he mentioned was that the U.S., Japan, and Korea, he had just come back from Deputy Foreign Minister Trilateral in Seoul that week. And then on Friday, they had a trilateral dialogue among the U.S., Japan, and Korea on North Korean human rights. And that was according to, I think he said, like the 64th meeting that has taken place among the three countries since Camp David. And so I think there's something to be said for building habits of consultation, like muscle memory in that sense. And I'm hopeful that the combination of that muscle memory and then these this compelling external environment will keep everybody focused on building and growing outwards, not just consolidating inwards.
All right, outstanding. Let me just add one other thing that seems to be relatively stable, at least in the Republic of Korea, is the popular support of the U.S. and the U.S. ROK alliance, right? That plays into that as well. I think gone are the days where you used to hear, well, the U.S. isn't popular, right? It's extreme. The U.S. is incredibly popular, even as we've seen individual presidents who haven't necessarily been popular in South Korea, and that's pretty remarkable in terms of public opinion on the peninsula.
It's probably because we had some good ambassadors at one point or another. I don't know.
President company excluded. All right. Anyway, let's get into China. I think I want to get into China through two real lenses. Well, maybe three. You'd say the security architecture, number one. Number two, DPRK, the relationship there, and three, I would say the economic competition piece. Dr. Hamre, let's turn to you first, and then we're going to go back to the foreign minister. How should the alliance be thinking about China in the 21st century? It's a growing issue. It's resonating in South Korea. It's posing challenges not just for the U.S. ROK alliance, but also how we think about our architecture throughout Asia. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Well, there's one truism in international relations, and that is hegemons create antibodies to themselves. And China under Xi Jinping has chosen to be more pugnacious and aggressive, and that is creating antibodies. And those antibodies are seeking, some framework where they have security, and that's the framework that we're gradually developing. Korea is an essential partner to that. Japan is an essential partner to that. India is now an important partner to that. Australia is an important part. We're gradually weaving a fabric of reassurance to deal with China as it is going through this phase. I don't know if it will change or not, if it's going through this phase of an aggressiveness that has intimidating qualities in the neighborhood and to us. And our solution, and I think there's a bipartisan agreement on this, our solution is to find partnerships and networks of partnerships in Asia that share a common framework, and that common framework is built around the rule of law Bretton Woods structure that we created 70 years ago. So I think the framework is there. I think there's a consensus around it. This is our domestic politics could have an impact on that because that framework assumed open markets, and one of the parochial dimensions of our politics now is protectionism and tariffs. And you can't really develop a framework that's only in one dimension of security in Asia. You have to have a framework that also includes economics and commercial integration. And I think we have some tension to that. But our framework of dealing with China is, I think there's a broad consensus to it, but there's this missing element of the economics.
All right, very interesting stuff there. All right, Foreign Minister, I saw you scribbling notes feverishly. Nobody ever does that when I speak, but your thought. So one, Dr. Hamre put out a very interesting framework of, you would say, I guess, overlapping, interconnected interests that basically are undergirded by a rules-based international order that, over time, amount to a formidable posture, I guess, for lack of a better term, in and around the Chinese aggression or problematic behavior. Your thoughts on that, number one, and number two, how does the Republic of Korea think about this developing architecture in the Indo-Pacific, rather?
Yes, Mark, China is an important neighbor. It's the largest trade partner. And now our dependence on China is gradually decreasing, but it's a very important major trade partner. And then given the inter-Korean confrontation, communication with China has a very strategic importance in trying to persuade North Korea to stop its provocations and come back to the dialogue table. China should play a constructive role in restoring peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula. Between Korea and China, it is important that our relationship should be mutually beneficial and mutually respectful, which means that China should respect Korea's sovereignty, territory, and integrity. During my tenure as foreign minister, I had many occasions to exchange our views with my counterpart, Foreign Minister Wang Yi, and I emphasized that Korea has our own values, which is democracy, freedom, market economy, and human rights. And China should also respect the norms and the rules of the international relations in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. And as long as China complies to this rules-based international order, we can have a very positive relationship with China. Now, our Indo-Pacific strategy, as you may know, is based on three principles. One is trust, two is reciprocity, and three is inclusiveness. It's not intended to exclude or alienate any one specific country. We would like to work closely with the countries which respect the rules and norms of the international order. Korea, Yoon Suk-yeol government is opposed to the unilateral change of status quo by force. Therefore, we would like to continue to make efforts to contribute to the freedom, peace, and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region and beyond.
All right, very interesting. Let me come back to one specific follow-up, and then I want to come back to Dr. Hamre on a broader topic. How you mentioned your exchanges with Wang Yi and your obviously your counterpart when you were foreign minister. How would you characterize the current state of South Korea-China relations?
I think that we are resetting our relationship, as I mentioned, to make the bilateral relationship a more sound and mature. It should be more reciprocal and mutually beneficial. As you know, South Korea is still investing significantly in China. We have major companies and numerous companies working in China. So we need to have a stable supply chain, the dialogue with China, and also to make sure that we can also diversify our economic relationship to reduce excessive dependence on one country. So I think it's in the course of resetting, and I think that we are moving in the right direction.
All right, outstanding. Dr. Hamre, you, in the very last part of your previous intervention, you teased the economic piece.
Yeah.
An area where I think many have said that there's just a paucity of activity especially by the U.S. in terms of some sort of integrated free trade market access framework in the Asia Pacific. Pak Jen just mentioned the Korean-China economic relationship. Can you speak about the importance, as you see it, of the economic piece in the Indo-Pacific, in and around, especially the U.S.-Korea piece, and then perhaps a little bit on this sensitive technologies issue, right, that the foreign minister mentioned at the outset as well?
Yeah, I think almost every foreign ministry in Asia, it's foreign ministry, it's foreign affairs and trade. Almost everyone thinks of foreign affairs in the context of commercial opportunities and commercial interaction. Everyone. We don't. And unfortunately, one of the great failings of the Biden administration is not to, they've done very well with Asia policy, in my view, on a security standpoint, but they have no trade policy. And that has undermined the effectiveness of their program. Trump has a strange trade policy. And it looks like it's going to get worse. I mean, with these massive tariffs designed to try mobilize investment in the United States. I don't know that will happen. I don't think he has a modern understanding of supply chains. But so this is something we're failing at. We're failing to incorporate, I think, this larger view of needing to have an economic security dimension inside our foreign policy. It's more important in Asia than any place in the world. And we have it. We're missing it. And I think that's a real flaw. And forgive me if I could just come back to your previous question, where you were talking about the structure in Asia. I think we should think about it. There's a larger context for the international order. And that is, the UN is now frozen. And what's emerging and this is Dr. Cha and I've been working on this, 4 tectonic geopolitical plates. One of the tectonic geopolitical plates is the OECD countries, the rule of law countries. And there's an informal secretariat in the G7 for that. Then you have the authoritarian tectonic plates, and that's China, Russia, North Korea, Iran. The Shanghai Cooperation Agreement is kind of a little bit the coordination for that, but that's too big. And the BRICS is now too big, because it has too many conflicting interests. But it is really just their alignment together. Then you get what are called the connector countries. These are important countries that are strong enough. They want to go both ways. They don't want to be trapped into either one of these 2 blocks. And that's Saudi Arabia, that's India, that's Turkey, it's Brazil, it's Mexico, it's Indonesia. They're strong, but there's no geographical propinquity. And there's no shared intellectual ideology. So they're not going to shape an international order. And then you've got the global south, and they're too diverse and too weak. Only the OECD G7 countries are going to be advocates for an international rule-based order, a rule of law order, open trade order. Only that group. It now needs leadership, and Dr. Cha has done some very pioneering work on this. We need to evolve the G7, as he says, bend the G7, and make it more, have a larger role as a leadership role. But the G7's misshaped. It's Europe heavy and it's Asia light. And we need to adapt that. And Dr. Cha's advocacy is to bring Korea and Australia in, make it a G9. You should, Victor, you should just say a word about this, if you're willing.
Well, I have no control over the show anyway, so like that ship has sailed. So Victor, please.
Well, like you said, we've been working on this project for a while now, in large part because the international system is lacking. All our global governance institutions are underperforming, and so we brought some data together to look at what other countries could be part of this larger grouping that have the capabilities and the political commitment to do that. And two kind of rose to the top: Australia, South Korea. The other one in Europe was also Spain. But these countries kind of rose to the top, and I think I think I had a very specific answer on China, and then Dr. Hamre took it up to this very grand strategy level. But I think that he's right. I mean, I think that we're at a pivotal moment in the international system where we know the global governance institutions are not working. Russia has vetoed something like 13 draft UN Security Council resolutions in the last 4 years, and China has aided and abetted at least 5 of those, right? That gives you a sense of where we are in the world today, if that's supposed to be, the primary institution of global governance. So something needs to change here, and this goes back to your original point, Mark, about this question of what role Korea can play. Can it step up into the future, or will it curl back into a shell? Again, the state of the world today mandates that Korea play this GPS role that Park Jin has always been talking about.
Well, and to your point, the global governance issue has ramifications all that are central to the alliance, right? DPRK, economic retaliation, which we've seen over things like THAAD, right? So, as important as, or as some I guess I can't speak today, as sometimes far removed the grand strategy may seem to some who follow the alliance closely, it's actually quite proximate. That's the point I'm driving at. Please come back and to your point on China as well, to get back to that point.
I'll just make 3 quick points on China. The first is, you remember there was a period of time where there was this debate about whether Korea should be a balancer between the United States and China. Like that conversation doesn't exist anymore, right? For good reason. The second is, entirely agree with the point about getting back to trade that Dr. Hamre made. China is out there with its with its BRI, with its AIIB, with RCEP. They're out there. They're playing the trade and investment game, and we are playing the investment game in small key pockets. But we're not playing the trade game. If we were somehow to get back to that, I think it would be very appealing for South Korea, not just South Korea, but many states, because they've all been victims of Chinese economic coercion. On the one hand, China talks about RCEP. On the other hand, they're economically coercing everybody. So that's the second point. And then the third is you have to, in terms of the South Korea-China relationship, as you both know well, in policy, individuals matter, right? And so what we saw with this administration was a President Yoon, a Foreign Minister, Park Jin, who really focused the compass of South Korean foreign policy on values, right? And that completely changed the way they looked at the world. And that is a very good reason for why Korea has sort of stepped on the global stage the way it has. It wasn't simply based on cold calculation of interest. It was based on something deeper, which was what the values that they believed in and how they externalized that in their foreign policy.
All right, outstanding, Victor. Why don't we go back to Foreign Minister Park Jin? We've got about 4 minutes left, and I want to turn it to you to connect any of the threads that Dr. Hamre and Dr. Cha raised about economic security, grand strategy, values. You've touched on many of these, and moreover, you've been lauded as a key architect of the GPS policy. So any closing, any final thoughts on that? And then bring us home, Foreign Minister, of closing thoughts on the future of the alliance. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mark. Let me say briefly about the GPS, the global pivotal state. The whole idea is for South Korea to play a more proactive role, an influential role on a global stage. The initiative aims to elevate Korea beyond its traditional focus on regional issues, such as North Korea and the Korean Peninsula, and to position the country as a key player in addressing global challenges. The GPS concept embodies Korea's desire to contribute to peace and freedom and stability worldwide, and leveraging its economic strengths, technological leadership, and diplomatic influence. In the area of innovation and technology, I think that the GPS, the impact of GPS has been most acutely felt. We are a global leader in industries such as semiconductors, electronics, green technology, and would like to play a pivotal role in shaping the global digital and technological landscape. I'm very grateful to Victor Cha when he mentioned that Korea needs to work closely with the G7 countries and hopefully to join the G7 together with countries like Australia to contribute to the further development of democracy, expansion of the economic growth, and contribution to the international community through technology, through human rights, and through climate change response. I think we have the economic strengths and global influence, as well as strategic geopolitical role to play. And Korea has been actively working in a multilateral diplomacy, such as the United Nations, G7, plus G20, APEC, and NATO. Although Korea is not a member of NATO, we have had a Asia-Pacific dialogue among 4 countries: Korea, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, which is an excellent opportunity for these countries to discuss our regional and beyond the regional issues among the members in the region. So I think there are a variety of areas where Korea can contribute, and that contribution will be even more strengthened if we continue our healthy and thriving alliance between Korea and the United States. Our alliance has been one of the most successful alliance in the history of the world, and I believe that it will continue to be so in the future.
All right, outstanding final intervention from former Foreign Minister Park Jin. I really appreciate the vision, the confidence. When Cassandra calls, I'm going to put the red phone onto you, Park Jin. So you're clearly a half full guy. So thank Dr. Hamre, closing comments to you. The floor is yours.
I'm very optimistic about Korea. There's such dynamism and creativity in Korea. There's energy and focus. We couldn't have a stronger, better ally, than we have with Korea. I very much want Korea to be in the G7 because I think it helps us understand the importance of Korea on the global stage, and it'll help Korean politicians understand they live in a much larger world than just the Korean Peninsula. And I think this is an agenda that's good for everybody. It's good for us, it'll be good for Korea.
All right, outstanding. With that, we are out of time. 100th episode in the books. Foreign Minister, thank you. Dr. Hamre, thank you. Dr. Cha, thank you. Outstanding episode. And I'll close by just saying, The other thing that we have in common is baseball. The K-Series is underway, and it's going to be an outstanding K-Series with the return of the Samsung Alliance for the first time since 2015 to the K-Series, kind of like the Yankees coming back for the first time. Exactly. So very, very interesting stuff here and lots of parallels. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for an outstanding session. Looking forward to more. And again, gavel down on episode 100 of the CSIS Capital Cable. Thank you.